horse's full stride, all his 1,000+ pounds was balanced on one leg, whose ankle was no bigger around than that of a ballet dancer's. A sigh shuddered from her lips in a vain attempt to relieve the tension that gripped her. With the fluid movement of long habit, Dani swung herself into the saddle of the stocky gray horse and walked him slowly to the larger, fidgeting thoroughbred. The rogue blew softly through his nose, nuzzling the neck of the more sedate horse, calming substantially while still moving nervously under the ministering hand of her father. Her eyes searched the drawn lines of Lou Williams' face, missing none of the strain and tension that had him on edge too. Lou Williams had once been a jockey like Manny, only he had lost the battle with his weight and height. But racing was in his blood. A few years after Dani was born, he had turned to training with mediocre success. Then, 12 years ago, he had picked up his first horse in a claiming race. But, as her father had often grumbled, it cost as much money to keep a loser as it did a winner, and most of the horses they had owned had been losers. Excluding the rogue, they owned a string of 6 third-rate horses. The only money winner in the lot this year had been an aging racing mare. But the rogue, every dream her father had ever dreamed, was wrapped up in this horse. The bridle was on and the saddle was cinched. Her father boosted Manny into the saddle, then stared at the rider crouched like a monkey on the big horse's back. "Once around the track at a canter to loosen him up," Lou Williams instructed, his eyes running anxiously over the jockey's nodding head. "Then a slow gallop, and damn it, I mean slow." A swift glance encompassed Dani, still mounted on the stocky mouse gray. "Take Nappy around with him. The rogue will keep pace with him." The mouse gray was his stablemate, and the only horse the rogue didn't attempt to outdistance. There was a brisk nod of understanding from Manny, and a sharp glance directed at Dani, plainly saying she was to lead the way. Seconds later, the pair were walking their horses onto the empty racetrack. For a furlong they trotted, paying no attention to the beautiful rose gardens in the infield. The famous twin spires of Churchill Downs Clubhouse kept watch. Churchill Downs, home of the Kentucky Derby horse race, was more than a century old, patterned after the equally renowned Epsom Downs in England. Neither rider said a word as Dani nudged the gray into a rocking canter and the rogue followed suit. Around the oval track, the pair traveled clockwise once. Dani's stomach knotted as she urged the gray into a steady gallop, her gaze straining to pick up the slightest nuance that would indicate that the accompanying rogue was favoring his right leg. But the big cedar-red stallion was effortlessly galloping beside her, pointed ears erect and swiveled forward as he tugged at the tightly wrapped reins without truly attempting to increase the pace. As they drew level again with the stand where her father stood, Manny raised his whip to signal that all was well, and Lou Williams motioned them to circle the track once more. At the end of the third route, he waved them to the gate. Unconsciously, Dani held her breath while she watched her father run his hand along the front leg of the stallion. There was a watery brightness to his brown eyes as he looked up, a grin splitting the weathered lines around his mouth. "He ain't even warm," he said gruffly, and she knew the tightness in his voice was caused by the lump of relief in his throat. "You might as well get down, Dani. The rogue doesn't need a nursemaid anymore." In compliance, she slipped from the saddle, a hand reaching out to stroke the silken neck of the rogue, then drawing quickly away when the finely boned head swung towards the hand, preparing to nip the unwary. "You ill-tempered demon," Dani crooned softly, smiling at the wide forehead with its darkly intelligent yet mischievous eyes. "I'd almost let you bite me just to see you run again the way you were born to." But she stepped back, out of reach of his teeth, marveling again at the magnificence of the animal before her. The perfectly carved head of the rogue swung away from his admiring audience. Both Dani and her father turned to see what